Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast, The Wire Remix Season 1, Episode 8, Lessons. Of course, as always, I'm joined by one Robert Sapp. How you doing, Mr. Sapp?
You doing well?
Good, good. Happy Sunday to everybody out there. Hope everybody out there is being safe, enjoying this weather. Over the past couple of days, we're not enjoying it too much like they are in Atlanta, but that's a whole nother story. Um, this episode was titled Lessons. It was directed by Gloria Muzio. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. Ranked by Vulture 49 on the all-time list of Wire episodes. Not as high as I thought it would be, considering how this was a big episode, to say the least. The epigraph. You come at the king, you best not miss Omar Little. Opening scene, you have McNulty with his son in a market playing the game Front and Follow with Stringer Bell. So if you're in law enforcement and you're listening to this podcast, please don't play Front and Follow. Use your kids as means to try to catch a criminal. Just don't do it. Like this, and this was an episode. This was not one of McNulty's best episodes, to say the least, in terms of some of the decisions that he was making, and the moves that he was making. And it began with this, where he takes his sons and uses them to follow Stringer in a market. Yes, he of course gets Stringer's license plate tag. His older son got it, but in typical McNulty fashion, he can't find the kids. So he gets the tag, loses the kids at the same time. What were your thoughts on this opening scene to this episode?
Yeah, good opening.
Yes, good.
Different, fun. I've said a lot on McNulty. He's not gonna win any Father of the Year awards on this one. But I think what the thing that I like about this episode of The Wire, and probably why it's ranked number 49 or lower on the end, is it's not so much set up. The Wire is always setting things up. You can see threads that are happening now that's going to jump off in season 3. So they're already 10 moves ahead of where everybody else is at this point in time. But I like the authenticity of building a case. And sometimes the things you think are going to go somewhere don't actually really lead you to anything. And sometimes they lead you to a place where you don't expect, which then lead you somewhere else. And so he's doing all of the Front and Follow to get Stringer Bell, to get his tags, to get information on him. And that information that he gets ultimately doesn't lead anywhere. But just speaking about the opening, it's setting all of that up in a very fun way, very interesting way, different.
No question about it. We move on to the detail. They realize that the Barksdales are onto them if you remember, the Barksdales pulled out Stringer. Avon had them pull out the 2 payphones. So now the detail knows that they have the Barksdales' attention in terms of them trying to switch up things. You see during that same scene, you have Herc and Carver discussing the sergeant's exam as well. And then they're asked by Presbeluski to, if they can go take pictures on the rooftops. They, of course, make fun of him being in-house because he shot off his gun in that not first episode, but first couple of episodes. I think it was episode 2. It might have been episode 1 where he shot off his gun. So they kind of chide him about that. And, just a continual theme of them not feeling like they are respected. But go back to when when the detail figures out that the Barksdales are basically completely onto him. Talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think we saw that last episode when the wire went down suddenly and like how Freeman reacted. Um, like he's able to deduce pretty accurately that they switched up because they made a move. And he says that when he's talking to Kima, maybe he's talking to the group, I can't remember. Where he's like, one phone ain't no thing, but both phones going off at the exact same time, that means that they're switching up. And that he says that shows how careful they are. Any move we make is going to elicit a reaction. So in a sense, he's saying, this we gotta be very careful with the moves, which is going to hint at what's going to happen later with Daniels and Burrell.
So you have Weebay, Stinkum, and Savino. They break into Omar's place, or one of his places. Look at, make fun of the pictures that they look at some pictures of him and Brandon. They laugh at that. They could try to go through. They basically toss his place. It's, just tear his place up. And then they proceed to set his the white van on fire. So you have, Weebay, Stinkum, and Savino. Omar is watching this the whole time, along with the girl who, who's one of the drug addicts with her baby. He's holding the baby. She's she was holding the baby, and no, he was holding the baby, and she was doing drugs. And she asked him if he wanted a part, wanted some ends on the drugs. Of course, he refuses. But I guess the old part of this scene is the fact he like it seemed like he was waiting for them. Like he's ahead of. I guess that showing the scene showing him watching them just shows how ahead of them that he is. Like he can see their moves coming in a sense, and he's not going to be taken for surprise. And that, of course, will foreshadow one of the bigger scenes in this episode. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, this is a really good scene. It continues to point at, the great sin of the Barksdale organization was killing Brandon the way that they did. Just that would be the original sin here. That leads to all parts of their downfall. Probably the single biggest thing that happened beyond the wire. I would probably argue even bigger than the wire. So it kind of answers the question that I remember having initially, and then watching again reminded me of just kind of like my thoughts on it at first. It's like that it was probably like 3 or 4 episodes ago where homegirl comes up to him and he's with Brandon and the other dude, and she doesn't have any money, and she wants some drugs, and Omar gives it to her after he stole the Barksdale package. And I think it was Brandon. He asked, "Why'd you do that?" And there's not really a clear answer at that point in time. In that moment, it kind of looked like charity that was going on. Maybe he felt bad for her, but this reveals what it really is, right? Like, in order for Omar to be so deep in a part of the game, he has to have allies every which way that he can get them, right? And so, he knows he's going to have to duck in different places at different times for whatever reasons. He's robbing drug dealers. I mean, that's just the life he's going to have to live. And so I like that it kind of answered that question without saying we're answering this question. And then, like you said, it sets up what happens later in the episode, which when it happens, it always surprises me. I always forget that happens. Always surprises me. I'm like, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
So to your point about Omar and his allies, Omar at this point is by himself in terms of they've killed both Brandon and they killed Bailey. So he's at this point in terms of being on the street, he's solo. But he has a foundation in terms of knowing what's going on the street, in terms of being able to be in these different places. He has that foundation. He does have that foundation, because I'm watching the scene again. I'm like, this is one man. He's one, like, this dude is one man, but it seems like in certain parts of town that he can go wherever he wants to in certain parts, and be able to like dip and move and be inconspicuous without being found, or without or move freely. And like to your point, giving her those drugs, and I'm sure he takes care of multiple neighborhoods as far as drugs and things of that nature. So Omar's in a way, that's his way of being like a politician. That's like he's doing, and I'm not gonna give anything away, but he's kind of like that's his Clay Davis way. He's doing Clay Davis from that standpoint, in terms of how he's taking care of people.
What I'll also say is, like, way back in episode 2 or 3, I believe, when Weebay is picking up Avon, and he goes, I feel like we're going way past careful. That this kind of shows you like the match in the witch between Avon and Omar. Both of them go way past careful, and they have to go way past careful, and that's how they got into the positions that they're in the best at what they do in this particular series at this particular time. Because they go way past careful, they're always thinking about how someone's going to come at them. And as we can see from a lot of different characters on this show, a lot of different characters don't think that way. A lot of people don't think that way, but they're showing it in the show that they don't think that way. They're not thinking about all the different angles. That's essentially what that means. I should have been the epigraph in one of the episodes. Way past careful.
Sapp wants to rewrite the show now. that would have been a good one. That could have made it. Way past careful. Weebay, no, we got that. McNulty, Bunk discuss Stringer, and of course McNulty tells Bunk about the story with his sons. And also we find out that turned out that car that Stringer was in, that McNulty got the plate number turned. We found out that turns out not to be his car. McNulty tells Bunk that he is using it as not lending it, but uses it under somebody else's name. So again, another example of how careful the Barksdale people are, and Stringer is from that standpoint. So that was that particular scene. Any thoughts on that conversation with Bunk?
Nah, that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Wallace and the young boy. So Wallace is assisting one of his younger kids that he takes care of with a math problem. The kid is stumbled by the math problem. Is clearly stumbled by the math problem. But Wallace uses what he knows about the streets, and then it makes perfect sense to the kid, and the kid basically says, Wallace says, basically, how the fuck do you can figure that out and not figure out and know about the count and not know this math problem? I mean, the kid says, if you fuck up the count, if you mess up the count, you get fucked up. Poot, he also talks about, while Poot also checks in on Wallace. Wallace, again, he's still suffering from PTSD, basically, from that Brandon killing. There's no question that he's been sleeping in his bed. Poot tells him that he can't carry the excuse of him being sick with D'Angelo for much longer. And Wallace asks Poot for $10, and then basically to ask Poot to keep, making up excuses for him. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, this one wasn't as eloquent as, like, I got the point. So I'm thinking about the conversation he has with the boy about the math problem. And so this one isn't as eloquent as the chess scene, for example. But they're making the same type of comparison, right? Like like the the knowledge of what they do is linked to who they are, and also that's kind of like how they're defined by themselves. That's how they define themselves, right? And there's also like a little bit of a deeper meaning. I mean, this is a thing that runs throughout the whole series, so it's something to pay attention to. It's how and why the drug game exists in Baltimore, and I would argue he's talking about why it exists in this country, but and how it is linked to everything that everybody does. So that's one part of it, and then the second part of it is just like this is the beginning of the end for Wallace. And the fact that Poot has to tell or feels compelled to tell D'Angelo shows that it's getting way past like what people will be able to cover up, and so it's going to go from Poot. I mean, anyway, so this is where you could be like, all right, this is about to be this is the beginning and the end for Wallace.
No question about it. You also see, obviously it's a sad scene from the standpoint of clearly this young kid is not dumb. He's just like he has no parents. This kid has no parents. So if you wonder about, I think it also shows an element of you wonder what this kid could do if he would put the effort into, put all the effort into school.
Yeah, I mean, like that's what I mean. Like, this isn't as eloquent as the chess game.
No, it's not.
It's meant to run that. It's meant to run that same type of mentality. So it's not like what can this individual kid do in school. It's what would happen to this community and communities like that if drugs wasn't ravaging it, right? Like, where would he be able? He could only put his energy into the drug game because that's what is in front of him. That's what exists. That's what is around him. So for that particular kid in this particular scene, that is everything. It makes very, very clear, logical sense to him. If I get that wrong, I get beat up. If I get this wrong in school, who cares? I mean, like, I just get it wrong. So that's a very literal meaning, but in a much deeper level, it is without this game, then I don't eat. Who knows where the kid's parents, so quote unquote, whatever is. We assume because of the situation or I assume because of the situation, they are long gone because Wallace is taken away from it for a variety of reasons. We can probably assume it's ravages of the drug game. So it's a commentary on drugs in America and how devastating it is. And it links up with the whole Clay Davis and his driver thing as well. And who gets rich off of drugs and who suffers off of it. It's an entire, I mean, like I said, this is a running theme throughout the entire Wire. So it's a commentary on it, absolutely. It's just a very on the nose commentary.
So you have the detail, hearing a call that Stringer being on the phone with Little Man. Then you have the detail hearing that call, some loose talk on String, some kind of loose talk by Stringer on the phone. What were your thoughts on that conversation?
No, I mean,
well, not loose talk. They were speaking in code. It wasn't loose.
Yeah. I mean, like the scene is set up to show you that the detail is on it, or at least what with Freeman being there, that the detail is on it. So
what came out? Go ahead. So what came out is what came out of this conversation was the fact that they got hip to the money that the dude that Damian Price was going. That was the key part of this scene. That they were hip to that. That this so they were ready for him once that came about. So that was they were able to deduce the codes and whatever in terms of what String was talking about. So that was what you take out of that scene from that standpoint.
Yeah, and the fact that they did, like, this is something that in a different world would be lauded. Like, wow, look at what you guys did. But as we're going to see, it's not lauded at all. It's not celebrated at all.
D'Angelo and Poop discussing Wallace. D'Angelo, I think at this point knows that he has to do something. He's thinking about what to do. But Poop tells him about Wallace. And then, D'Angelo kept Poot at bay in terms of what he was thinking. He kept him, like, okay, I'll take care of it. So he didn't give Poot a lot of insight in terms of what he was thinking. But D'Angelo at this point knows that he needs to get to Wallace. What were your thoughts on that short conversation?
I had a little bit of a different take. I think, as we'll see at the end of the episode, D'Angelo has a lot going on in his mind. He's not actually really thinking about Wallace. If Poot doesn't bring it up, he's not thinking about Wallace at all. It's the fact that Poot has to bring it up, and then
that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
On the forefront. Yeah. Put it on the forefront of D'Angelo's mind. And the reason why that's a big thing is remember when we were talking about Orlando last week, and we're going to see the ramifications of that. D'Angelo's he's not somebody who's way past careful. He's not thinking about all these moves in the head. He drops that. Anyways, we'll get to that. But it comes to the forefront of D'Angelo's mind, which means D'Angelo's going to say something. And D'Angelo's going to say something because he's so connected to Avon. He's going to say something, and that's something, even though he doesn't intend it to go the entire way that it's going to go that way because of the people he's connected to. And so that's why this is the downfall of Wallace, because it comes to the attention of D'Angelo, who's going to unintentionally set some things off just by the nature of who he is.
So you have Signer and Herc on the rooftop taking pictures of Damian Price, who, of course, is Clay Davis' driver, the guy that we saw in the previous episode talking to Daniels at that party. He's receiving money. He was receiving money coming out of the pit, out of the pit, or out of the high rises, out of the towers. And they, Herc and Signer let Kima know. Kima and them, of course, everybody, they were on it. And again, to your earlier point, this begins the money trail. And again, this is Damian Price. This is a driver, Clay Davis' driver, with a trash bag full of money, driving out of the pit. What were your thoughts on this?
Yeah, this is it. This is another thesis statement of the show. This is it. I mean, they lay it out very clearly later on in this episode. But this is something that they're going to have to fight the entire series. They're going to have to fight the entire series, and this is going to continuously be the roadblock in a lot of investigations. But essentially, in this scene, because it was so well set up and we talked about it at length with Daniels and oh boy and
Day.
Yeah, Ashley Larry.
Yeah.
It, like that was set up. It is the politics of all of this, and politics is linked to money, is the thing that is going to be the biggest rival, way beyond drugs. To or way beyond any drug dealer, drug kingpin, whatever, is going to be the thing that stonewalls and blocks and crushes their various investigations. And so in this scene, we're just getting to the beginning of it. It's like, oh, there's Ashley Larry. He's coming out of the pit with money. He should be in trouble, but we'll see. We'll see very soon.
You had D'Angelo, Wee-Bey, Savino, Stinkum discussing at a food place, discussing Stinkum's party. Now you remember a couple episodes back, Stinkum gets promoted to finding that new territory. They have to of course, the new territory has this off-brand drug dealer named Scar. So they discussed that. They discussed taking over the new territory, discussed taking out Scar. During that scene, and they give D'Angelo some credit for what Wee-Bey does in terms of how he was running the pit, in terms of making the money, that part of it. D'Angelo tells them about Orlando and this scheme that Orlando has cooked up, and they not warn him, but tell him like you need to run that past Avon. So D'Angelo does that, and then of course a little comedy in there with Wee-Bey eats the corned beef, not corned beef. What was he eating? That was radish. Yes, radish sandwich. It was burning him up.
I mean, it's the horseradish on
horseradish on bread. But I guess the key part of this scene was the Orlando part of it. What were your thoughts?
I mean, there's a lot of different parts to this scene. So when I was looking at the scene, I'm just like, this is the Barksdale crew just basically illustrating their downfall. I mean, this is it. This is everybody at that table plays a very significant part in how it's going to downfall to what's going to go on later that night. Bad business. To D'Angelo not thinking through what he needs to say and how he needs to say it and why somebody comes to him like this, like just being very ignorant of the facts of different things that's going to happen. To the reason, as you were talking, I was like, the reason why the thing with Stinkum always surprises me, because I always forget about Stinkum. He is not a memorable character at all. And he's not set up to be a memorable character. This Stinkum sets up Omar. He's a setup for Omar. And he's also a setup for D'Angelo. And kind of like shows like the lack of hustle that D'Angelo has, and how closely tied to his uncle, and how closely tied that success is as well, which is again why he has to say things to Avon. So this right here, this is just like a real chill not chill conversation, but this is just like a quote unquote group outing as they're preparing to celebrate. But you can actually see the instruments of their own destruction being laid out right in that meeting.
Yeah. So you have Kima and Carver pulling over Damian Price. They take the money. They take the money from Price. They take the money from Price. Then they tell Daniels about it. So then you have Kima, Daniels, Carver, and McNulty, and Price and Kima, Daniels, Carver, and McNulty in the scene as well. And Daniels tells them, "Hey, we're gonna just." They tell Daniels what happened, that they pulled him over, that he had $20,000 of cash coming out of the Barksdale Towers. Daniels tells them to Daniels tells them to keep the money, and Ryan he wants to go file it. If he wants to file a complaint, let him file a complaint, but keep the money. And there you had it with Damian Price. So he gets pulled over. They keep the money initially. They keep the $20,000 initially. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, like it all plays like the other scene. Like the two play very close together because Damien's not released at that point in time or anything like that. So basically, they're strategizing at this particular point what to do because there's no specific charge because they don't want to
they didn't have a charge.
Yeah, there's no specific charge because this is information coming from the wire, and so like if they charge, then that's all discovery evidence. Yada 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 yada. So part of the strategy is. The way we're going to hold on to this money is we'll do the thing, write him a receipt, and of course he won't come back for the money because it's drug money. So it's initially part of a strategy session on what everyone still at this point in time feels like is the right thing to do, in terms of just nuts and bolts, the right thing to do. The bigger sense that I got from this, or the general sense that I got from this, I should say, is that at this point in time, no one has grasped, none of them grasp the political implications of this. Daniel sort of kind of gets it at this point in time, but even right now, I don't feel like he's thinking in that way.
Yeah. I think that this took them for a loop, so to speak. I think this caught them off guard, that they did not expect that this dude was going to be driving out of the Barksdale's area with $20,000. I mean, normally I think they mentioned during the scene, normally re-ups go in, and this dude is coming out. So I think, like you said, they're like, let's hold on to this money and see what it will possibly lead to. Like, is somebody gonna make noise?
When Kima said that, it was like a tip off to us that this was going to be something different that was going to happen. And so the way that the thing plays out is like this. I mean, like, we don't know. Of course, we know Clay Davis, those of us that have watched the entire series and everything like that. So we know what Clay Davis is about. And so the way that this sets up is the Barksdale, Avon, Stringer need to pay off the senator for a variety of different things. This is how they keep beating cases and all the different. This is how this just happens, right? Like in organized crime, right? Like you got to have law enforcement at all its various, or the judicial system at all its various levels. You got to have people on the payroll at the very least to tip you off on things. If not outright get you out of stuff, right? So we need to pay Clay Davis. And so instead of making anything that is remotely close to them hot, they're getting the money from the pit. So get the $20,000 from the pit, Clay Davis, homeboy that we know, or have back channels through. You drive to the pit, and then you'll get the $20 to take to Clay Davis for our payoff, right? Like that's kind of the arc of how it works. And that's what I mean, like to both our points, like they don't get that. They're not seeing that at this point in time. They're just seeing some yodel, like Daniel, goes in and says, hey, the first thing he says, did you get that money by cracking cribs? Like, see, he's not catching, he didn't catch on quick enough in order to avoid what was going to happen. Daniels is also a by the book, by the numbers guy. He's not somebody that thinks way ahead either. He doesn't look at all the angles.
No.
That just illustrates, this scene just kind of like illustrates that. Neither does Kima. Kima's not one. Freeman's the only one.
Yeah, Freeman, and to a somewhat lesser point, McNulty.
Nah, McNulty doesn't see beyond this. McNulty is just, he has righteous indignation about things.
You're talking about, for this specific thing, it is Freeman in terms of this specific.
Freeman sees all the angles.
Orlando, Avon, Stringer. So Orlando goes to see Stringer and Avon. Avon basically reprimands him for even thinking about making a side deal, and he and Stringer proceed to beat the shit out of Orlando. Basically says, all I do is put money in your fucking pocket so you won't stray away from the nest. He says, the last thing I need is my clean liquor license dirtied the fuck up by you. So of course, D'Angelo went to Avon, and Avon and Stringer respond. They kicked Orlando out their office, and some of the girls even saw Avon kicks him outside the office. So some of the girls even saw it. Chardine sees it as well. So she's getting that they're doing their makeup. So the girls see it. Other girls don't pay it barely any mind. Chardine takes note of it. What were your thoughts?
It's interesting how you said Avon and Stringer. Watch that scene again. Avon's doing all the aggressing. When he kicks him, no, I have a point to be made. Even though he's because I would have said the same thing if I hadn't just watched it. Just going off my memory. But when I was watching that scene, as Avon outside, they throw him outside, or Avon throws him outside the office and kicks him or whatever. Stringer's just kind of like in the back going like, it made me smile because it's kind of like that, the boy who's like, and that's what you get, but it didn't throw any punches because his man is handling all of the business. And this is why that's important. The opening scene as well. I wanted to wait here, Ty, wanted to say back to the opening scene. This is actually the beginning of the split between Avon and Stringer. The ideological split, right? And so that was a visual representation of it, right? Like, so first you got the beginning. You got the beginning of where they're how they're following, how Stringer is in the going into that's the beginning part of Stringer's just out shopping. That's interesting.
No, but hold on. I know we'll get different parts. Save that. Save the Stringer part, though. Save that Stringer part.
Yeah. So this is another kind of like another tick in that box of like Avon is the aggressor in this entire scenario.
No question. But to me, is no question to me that Avon is the muscle.
No. Avon's the kingpin.
Avon's the kingpin. No, Avon. No, I'm saying so. Avon is is definitely the aggressor. But
no. But that's why I'm saying you gotta watch. Like, it's setting up the pattern. Like you can't differentiate what's happening with Avon and Stringer in this scene with what happens later on in the episode. It's all the same pattern. So Avon is meant to be seen ultra aggressive. Stringer is meant to be seen as super passive.
Yeah, so here's what I say. When they both step out, Avon kicks him. But I must have seen this.
Yep.
Seen this episode how many times. I always thought that Stringer got in at least one punch.
Nope.
But to your point, yes, I can see it makes more sense the way you explained it and the way we know how things play out, that Avon did all the physical aggression, and then Stringer just had a mean mug on his face.
There you go.
That was a good mean mug. He got me.
It was. He looked at me. He did. He looked like he did something.
He did. That was a good mean mug. So yeah. It makes all the sense in the world that, to your point, to how things would end up going, that Stringer did not throw near a punch or a kick in that scene. So we have Kima, Carver. No, we got that. We have Daniels, Burrell, Reed, and Major Reed. Burrell tells Daniels to give the money back. You don't have a charge, and basically threatens to shut down the entire investigation. This is at a point to where Daniels is completely just like what's going on here, like basically what's going on, and had very minimum retort, but this is when the politics goes to a whole nother level, and you see how connected that Damian Price and this dude was. because Burrell, they don't even care about the money. Like the money, they're not. They say just give the money back. Do you have a charge? No. Okay. Bam. Then cut him loose. So now, this takes a political thing to a whole nother level. They have to, of course, give the money back, and then another big part of this was, of course, Burrell tells Daniels to shut down the investigation, wrap it up, despite the fact that they still had time left on the wire. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, you said it. This is the kind of the actual tangible thing, a tangible part of the political process, right? I mean, like, like this is another one where it's just impossible to separate now from what I know, because it informs so much. When you're watching this for the first time, it's just like, oh man, that's really messed up. But we know how Mayor Royce operates. We know how Clay Davis operates. We know how, we can see exactly how this happened, which is the genius of the show, because they're going to eventually show us in season 3 how this goes down, right? But if we keep it specifically to the characters right in the moment, the reaction, the frustration, which is kind of like the thesis of it, the frustration is acted out by the various members of the detail, right? Daniels has a particular frustration, McNulty has a particular frustration, Kima has a particular frustration. So they take on that ownership of, or there's not ownership, they are the lenses for us, the audience, as to like, nobody knows what's going on because this is way above all their pay grades. In all of this, as we will find out in seasons later, how much above the pay grade this is above them. So right now, all we can just see is we see the end result of all the political movements in this scene, and then we see the reaction of the members on the detail and how upset and frustrated and confused they are.
Yeah, to your point, this, and for my audience, this introduces us to characters that we haven't even seen yet. At this point we don't know yet. So that without question that scene achieved that. So from a political standpoint, you have Stinkum you have Stinkum and Weave and D'Angelo in Orlando at the party. Now, this is for the Barksdells, who are as disciplined and forward-thinking of a organization and what have you. This party was everything that Avon would be totally against. This party, you have Orlando's girls at the party, okay? You have Coke at the party. Stinkum was about to roll up a joint. D'Angelo's like, what about the rules? Stinkum was like, special occasion. One of the girls at the party gets sick. And we see what that leads to.
She's not sick.
No, yeah.
And they drugged her.
No. This scene, hold on. We'll get.
They drugged her.
We'll get to that. We're gonna have
no, there's no get like no. They weren't sick. That's the point. They're not sick. That's the overriding.
Yes, the product. Yes, the product was cut. The product was cut. I don't think they didn't. Yeah, the product was cut, and it was a drugging going wrong. All right, so it was a drugging.
I don't know about going wrong, because them boys didn't care if they lived or died at all. Don't soft sell this one. This was devious and malicious, and every reason is why Avon wouldn't want any of this to happen. This is just a bunch of niggas being criminals, evil criminals. It's just that simple.
Yes.
Which is why they have rules to prevent them from messing everything up. So they
break every Barksdale rule.
Every
rule is rubber. And yes, the drugs that the coke is clearly laced. So that's no question about it. First of all, the product is not great around the city as it was, and then that product that they had, the way they cut it, there's no question in my mind that they stepped on that product and it was clearly was laced, to your point. And then you have something subtle that you might have missed. Not you, but if you're an audience member, you watch this for the first time. There's a head nod between D'Angelo and Orlando, and D'Angelo, it was very quick and subtle, but Orlando gave a look like, okay, yep, it was very subtle, and you would see Orlando's. We'll put a bookmark next to that, that part of the scene. But this was bad for the Barksdales. This was going to lead to a lot of things that ends up help take them down, or ends up just being. It's good. It was a thread. This was one of the most of this season up until this point. One of the most devastating blows of for the Barksdales in terms of what this scene would end up leading to. Go ahead.
So I had an interpretation on that look. So D'Angelo nods at Orlando, kind of like, hey, yeah, see, what's up? And basically the nod back from Orlando was fuck you.
Yes.
Because he had told.
Yeah.
Like, so that's and Orlando got his ass kicked. So essentially that's what all that was about. And so yeah. This just bad. It's just, I mean, like, it's, again, like to the point of, like, they're very good at what they do. Talk about the Barksdales. They're very good at what they do in individual pieces, right? But at the end of the day, this is still a bunch of young guys doing young guy stuff.
Right.
And so, and then you add on everything on that. Just, wanton violence, no care about human life, excessive drug use, excessive alcohol use, like like all of that. And it was only a matter of time before something really bad happened. The kind of the monkey wrench in all of this is D'Angelo, because D'Angelo has a conscience. The others do not. And so, as you're watching the scene, that just kind of like plays itself out, and then we'll get to the end, and that'll ultimately bear it. So, in one instance, this is a very horrible scene, with horrible consequences for people in the scene, and then for people outside of the scene in the Barksdale organization as a whole. But you can also look at this as this is the beginning of D'Angelo's own tragic circumstances, right? Because what he saw at this party and how this wasn't people in the game per se, right? Like this wasn't a rival drug gang. This was people who just didn't care about human life. And that I think for him was a very clear distinction. And so, anyways.
All right, let me get back to a scene that I mistakenly skipped over. You have McNulty and Daniels at the end of the Damian Price scene. So McNulty confronts Daniels about letting Damian Price go, and he questions Daniels, not his authority, but questions Daniels' intentions, and he basically calls out Daniels, saying that you're a shift lieutenant and you are going directly to the deputy ops when your boss is Colonel Foster, who's the older white guy. So you didn't even talk to Colonel Foster. You just got that. You had that pipeline to Burrell. So he says, why is the shift lieutenant talking to the deputy ops? What does he said, what does he have on you? And this, of course, this sets Daniels off inside. Now, Daniels doesn't react outwardly. Daniels says rank. That's all he has over me, rank. That's the word I meant. I believe you mentioned. But Daniel's inside is pissed off because he definitely responded calmer than what he was going on inside. So I didn't want to leave that out. That was big from a standpoint of we going back to what's the mystery behind Daniel's being coming up with having all this cash in his account and being, having some skeletons in his closet and in his connection to Burrell. What were your thoughts on that exchange?
Yeah, McNulty's an asshole. I'm going to leave it at that. He's an asshole. And Bunk lets him know he's an asshole at the end. Like, if we want to be just very clear. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. Yep.
So you have Daniels and Marla, his wife, discussing Burrell, discussing Burrell about talking about Burrell and talking about giving the money back to Damian Price. His wife mentions that he mentions to his wife that he thinks that Burrell feels like he crossed him. And he confides in his wife that he was pissed off about McNulty questioning, asking him, about that relationship or the dynamic of his relationship with Burrell. Does he have anything on you? She responds like, "What did you say?" And he doesn't say anything, just makes a face. You can tie in this scene to one of the epigraphs from about 4 episodes ago, or not even 4 episodes, maybe even longer than that, to where she told him, you can't lose if you don't play. That epigraph could be directly tied into that scene, this particular scene.
Yeah. I think the thing that caught my interest on this was kind of Daniel's take on Burrell. And what I got out of this is, I think, kind of like this is the foundational kind of like part of Daniels is just he's just not comfortable playing the political game. That's what I got out of this. It just will just not be something that he's ever comfortable with. And to your point, I wasn't thinking of it until you said it, but to your point, now that I'm thinking about it, that's, maybe that's what Marla was saying to him in specific. Like, other people could play and win, but you can't play and win this game. This is you just not built for this. Yeah, that's an interesting tie-in thinking about D'Angelo as well. But yeah, and when you said that's what came to my mind. I'm like, huh? Oh yeah. That's she did say that, and I remember us talking about that. And now thinking about what I know about Daniels, even in this even just looking at it this season wise, there have been numerous examples of him just being really, really uncomfortable playing the politics side of all of this. And McNulty, of course, says that jab at him to be like you're trying to be political. And that's, that's part of the reason Daniels reacts the way that he reacts to that. But yeah, so anyway, yeah. This is an interesting scene because it's more character building, more character setup for Daniels.
So we get to Weebay, D'Angelo, Little Man. The party's dead at this point. They sent D'Angelo out for some beer.
Yeah, the party's dead because they killed a girl. That's why the party's dead.
That's dead. That certainly didn't help. So the party's dead. D'Angelo comes back with the beer, says, why y'all send me out and the party's over. They are just chilling on the couch, basically watching SportsCenter or whatever. D'Angelo goes in the room, looks at the girl, realizes the girl is dead. This is the girl that Weebay took in the room with him. And, he basically brags, must have fucked her silly. And he tells D'Angelo, D'Angelo tells Weebay, like, yo, gives her a look like, yeah, she's gone. And then Weebay gives a look like, what the fuck, like, okay, like whatever. Basically, like Weebay just didn't give a shit that she was gone. D'Angelo had a look on his face like what the fuck just happened? What were your thoughts?
I mean, I pretty much outlined my thoughts on this one. Just all bad, nothing good, all bad. There's no positive, there's no deeper meaning in any of these scenes, or any of this scene right there. Weebase clearly the villain, the animal, the heartless one. This clearly sets up D'Angelo as this being a clear shift in values for him.
And this girl was also, for my audience, this girl was of course one of the girls from the club too. So keep that in mind as well. That worked at Orlando's club. You have Phelan, Kima, McNulty. They have Phelan's in his house. No, his office. They're in his office. So they tell McNulty and Kima tell Phelan about them letting Price go. And that the wire might get shut down. Phelan asked them how many days do they still have left on the wiretap. They said they were on day 40. The tap was scheduled to be 60 days, I think. It was 60 days, but they were like on day 40. So Phelan just gets into Burrell's ass, basically saying, you know, stop fucking with me. You're gonna give me my 60 days, or you're gonna be in contempt of court and say hello to the kids while you're at it, to your Arlene the kids. So that was a quick conversation in terms of Phelan exuding his authority over Burrell. So they keeps the wire from getting shut down. And then he of course teases or taunts McNulty with "Who's your daddy now?" at the end of that scene. What do you think?
Yeah. It's just out checkmate the Burrell. Just out checkmate them. This was a judge who had already invested time, effort, and energy into this for a variety of different reasons. And so he wasn't going to let outside authority take down the wire. I think it also is telling that it was the judge's decision. This one didn't lie, obviously, at the feet of McNulty, even though McNulty's fingerprints are all over the judge per se. This one, the judge, they
didn't have to convince
overstepped. No, because Burrell overstepped the judge's authority, and so now the judge was reacting to that.
Yes.
Not anything. Again, none of anybody's motivations are about actually doing good police work, making the city safer and solving crimes, right? Like, this is all political and personal feelings and vendettas and agendas that are fueling what's going on, which is also another theme that will play out through all the seasons of The Wire.
McNulty Stringer. McNulty follows Stringer to a Baltimore community college and realizes he's taking microeconomics classes. I believe the class was called Introduction to Microeconomics. This is, to me, the official, and to piggyback off your point earlier, this to me was the official split, beginning of the split from a ideological standpoint between Stringer and Avon. Because now Stringer, it opens up the door to Stringer it opens Stringer up to a whole nother world that he seems comfortable with. And McNulty, of course, was surprised by it. Looked surprised, like, what is this? Like, I don't know what was going through McNulty's head when he saw it, but he certainly could not have expected to see this. But this is Stringer branching out on his own mentally, the beginning of that with this. This is a pivotal scene in the whole entire series. Especially for the Barksdales. I can't emphasize how pivotal this scene is. Go ahead.
It's the obvious indication of what it's the tangible indication of what's going on. But if you think about it, and you take a character's arc, right? It like the ideological divide is if Stringer goes to college or not. Nobody cares if he goes to college and wants to better educate himself. The ideological divide is how we see the drug game or the drug business, right? And like which way should it go? So this is obviously giving us a clue to how Stringer Bell views what the Barksdale, or wants to view what the Barksdales do as a business, which Avon does not. And they'll have that conversation very soon.
I also will say there's a scene in this season that I'm going to tie into this scene right here in regards to Stringer. He does something, and I'm not gonna say what he does, but he does something that ties into the scene. And this scene will make more this scene will make more sense when you see the scene that's gonna be coming up in this episode, it's later on season 1. It will directly tie into this scene. So put a bookmark next to this particular scene. Daniels, Kima. Daniels and Kima. Kima confirms McNulty's story about the judge to Daniels. Of course, what I didn't bring up is Daniels was on the phone with once the judge maintained the order to keep the wire on for 20 more days. Daniels was on the phone with McNulty. Of course, Daniels is not going to believe McNulty. McNulty says, "Hey, Kima was there. This was on the judge. If you want to ask somebody, ask Kima." Kima then confirms the story about the judge to Daniels.
Yep, you laid it out. It's straightforward.
Herc and Carver. You have Herc and Carver discussing the sergeant's exam. They take the exam, and clearly Herc is cracking jokes during the exam. Clearly, Herc is not taking his exam seriously. He makes jokes even when they were in the detail and they were supposedly studying. Well, one of them was studying. Herc was studying. Carver was studying. Herc was just shooting the shit. So I think this is important from the standpoint of where this leads those two respective characters down the road without giving stuff away. Any thoughts on this scene?
No, I think you nailed it. It's of course I have thoughts. The just building character. They'll be consistent in their character development throughout the series. And this is the beginning, just the beginning parts of laying down some of those elements of their character.
Stringer and workers in the print shop. So Stringer's in the print shop and he reprimands his workers. And you can correct me on this. He says to them, basically, I want this run like a business. Basically, fuck all that street corner shit. I want this run. That's the part. I want this run like a business. He says y'all pretend like we have a elastic product when we have an inelastic product. So Stringer, you can't tell Stringer shit right now. Stringer's like a kid who just learned a new word.
There you go.
Just wants to just show everybody that he learned a new word and just spread like, hey, look what I learned, or look what I have. So, but this emphasizes the business aspect of what Stringer is thinking in terms of his philosophy that he wants that organization to go into. Because he was real emphasized, I don't fuck that street shit, basically. And he put a real emphasis on that.
Yeah. I mean, like he started off. I mean, like it's Stringer. Like when I was watching the scene again, I was looking at how Idris Elba decided to play this scene. I'm gonna zoom out a little bit, and like when he goes into the elasticity, non-elasticity, whatever, you can see him pause at the very beginning, and Idris plays it as like, I don't know how this is going to come off, but I'm going to use this word and just try to like feel it out. And of course, he gets no feedback from
Right.
the
They don't know
crew.
what shit means.
No, he doesn't know what it means. To be honest with you, he just learned it. Like that's what, to your point, what you're saying. Like it's like you just got this language. Like no, you don't know what this means. You just read it in a book. And he just plays it like that. If you watch, there's no confidence. Stringer doesn't say this with any confidence.
No.
And so it always, like when I think about like this, it kind of like reminds me of like when I played Madden against my younger brother. A, he was younger than me, and B, he didn't even really like sports games, so I beat the hell out of him, and I feel really good and feel really confident. And then you play somebody who actually plays the game and is the same age as you, and it's a very different story. It's nowhere near as comfortable. And so like to that point, Stringer is like the older brother, the father figure, whatever, like shouting down on this group and using big words to sound smarter. That's how Idris plays it. By using this actually means I am smarter, and that's not necessarily true, particularly for the business that they're in.
Right. Yeah, because these are clearly two street dudes. These dudes are not some dudes that you would find working in a regular print shop.
I mean, the thing about the scene that makes it fantastic is the use of those words, right? Is when you juxtapose it with McNulty, seeing him in community college, and now he's going and he's doing all of this. Like what he's doing is criminal empire 101, right? Like you have a front, right, where you can launder money through. That's not something that no one knows. Everybody knows that. In terms of what has been lessons learned over the history of organized crime and all of its facets in this country and countries around the world, and how businesses operate, honestly. And so none of that is different. And him telling the youngins from the corner, don't bring any of that corner stuff here because this business needs to look legitimate, isn't different either. It's the fact that he pauses and takes that moment to use the words he just learned on these corner boys who aren't thinking business economics right now, at the very least. That's not what's important in their lives right now. And so that shows the element of Stringer that will be played out as the season and as the series progresses. Whereas, again, I'm going to say a line that doesn't happen yet, but it informs everything. Avon, you're not quite smart enough for them out there, not quite hard enough for this right here, right? So like this is the beginning showings of that. And so for a while it will be looked upon as a positive, but view it from both sides. And this is what this scene is trying to get at. That a lot of what Stringer's going to be doing is going to be putting on the facade of intellect when it's not quite that cut and dry.
Yes. All right, the big scene. We have Stinkum, Weebay, Omar. So Weebay and Stinkum are setting up. First of all, Weebay and Stinkum are setting up in the car. They're plotting out how they are there to take over the territory with Scar and a couple other dudes. So Weebay is giving Stinkum directions like, I'm gonna set up around the block. You know, if his boy raised up, I'm on him. And he tells Stinkum. Stinkum brings up Bird, saying he wish Bird was here for this. That Bird, Bird be loving this shit. And Weebay tells him that reminds him, because of course we remember Bird got caught with the weapon. He tells Stinkum to drop that weapon in the storm drain when we're done. They go set up, and Stinkum is walking, and next thing you know, Omar comes out of nowhere, blows Stinkum away. The other dudes run off. Omar then shoots Weebay in the leg, and Weebay runs behind a car for cover. And then, of course, he gives one of the famous epigraph lines in Wire history: "You come at the king, you best not miss." As he's whistling, before he was says it after he was whistling, and of course, Weebay is wounded in the leg. Yeah, so much from this scene. Questions for you. How did Omar know where they were going to be at? I guess that would be my biggest question. Like, how did Omar had it timed perfectly?
Yeah.
Does that go back to Omar's street connections and his on the street? Talk about that.
Yep. So in looking at the episode, there's no specific like scene where Omar was privy to what they were doing, but Omar knows where all the packages are. Absolutely. He has to know that. So he knows that the Barksdale crew is moving in on Scar. I mean, that's kind of like well-known information at that point in time. And so I think, like, for me, like, I connected those two together, right? Like, they're reorganizing how these packages are going and what's happening with the packages. That's something Omar is always keeping his eyes on, as well as the streets are talking that Barksdale's crew is moving in on new territory. So I don't think it's a hard leap to get there. But in terms of, like, if there's any specific scene, there was no specific scene in this episode that alludes to that. And then I think also where I was going to go, it doesn't actually matter, because this is Omar the legend right here. Like, this cements kind of like that next level. There's a variety of different thoughts of Omar up until this point in time, in terms of like what he's doing and why he's doing things, and there's like little pieces that are shown. But this one, like you said, you have the famous line, "Come with the king, bet not miss," from him. You have him whistling "The Farmers in the Dale." You have him outmaneuvering, Barksdale's top muscle, and putting a major cramp in Barksdale, willing to go up against Barksdale, like you said, with literally no muscle with him. He's just going at it alone. So this is in my mind's eye, as I was watching this go down, I was just like, yep, this is the importance of this scene. This kind of like is like, yep, this is Omar. This is why Omar is Omar. This is the beginning of it.
So you have Kima and Freeman hear that Stinkum's been killed on the wire. They hear that. Then you have anything you want to add to that? Because I thought that was pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and they say that on the wire, Omar did it. So
Omar, they say Omar. They know that
who did it. Yeah.
Yes. Now you have Avon with Weebay, Stringer, and a bunch of muscle. Avon puts the bounty out on Omar, put $10,000 bounty out on Omar. He says, and he couple key things. He says, not just our people, anybody that's willing to step up. So he sends them out, sends a lot of the muscle, the majority of the muscle out, with the exception of including Weebay. He asked Weebay where did he go with that. Said he went to the hospital, told him he caught a stray, and Weebay says that it was no homicide police, just a roller that approached him. So then Weebay leaves, and it's just Stringer and Avon. Avon asked Stringer advice on how to deal with the situation. And basically Stringer tells him, like, look, this thing has gotten personal. We need to step back and put it out there that we're gonna call a truce. And then when he pops his head, then we hit him. Avon, of course, is not really feeling that strategy. Avon's like, at first Avon said, let it slide, and then Stringer mentioned the strategy. And then at the end of that scene, Avon gives a look like, not really feeling that, but he gave a look like, I'm not feeling that, but I get what you're saying. They gave that type of look. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to cut out the I get what you're saying. He gave a look that said, I'm not feeling that.
Like, I'm not feeling
Period.
that.
Period. Yeah. That's this is they're laying the breadcrumbs for us. This will be their direct argument for all of season 3, right here. That scene is season 1. This scene is season 1, and again, this is why this show is so brilliant. Because they're laying down a foundation for epicness later on. But this will be the key. This be the key. Not only did they build it throughout this episode, but they're building it for seasons. This is their key disagreement right here. Avon's always gonna be like, let's chill, let's let it play out, and Avon's like, damn that, let's do this. Like again, business versus the game. The game dictates a certain reaction. Stringer's not thinking that way. He's trying to be. He's not thinking that way, and they both very well laid out what their thought process are. Because even though Stringer says la da 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 da, and then when he comes out, we'll do that. As we know, that's not necessarily his play. That is mainly to chill Avon out.
Right. That terms of when he says when he comes out, we'll hit that.
Yeah.
That was the.
And that's what Avon is saying. Like, wait, what? What are you talking about? So, but anyways, like all of those, the semantics. The great thing about what this is doing is it's building what we're going to see next from these two. It's not going to pay off by the end of this season. It isn't.
No.
It isn't. But it's building.
Like you said,
towards something.
The perfect analogy, like you said, was breadcrumbs. These were the breadcrumbs.
Yep.
There was big time in this episode. This was the first episode where you saw those.
The divide between those two.
Yes,
absolutely.
Without question. So you have Omar, McNulty, Freeman, and Kima down to detail. Omar, of course, denies everything, denies killing Sneakum. They explain to Omar how this fucks up their case from a standpoint that they had Sneakum on that previous charge before when they called him with the 4G packs. And he basically says they basically say, it's getting rid of the gun, the evidence, a part of the game too. And then, of course, he laughs that off, and he tells him the game is out there. It's either played or get played. And that is the key line to that whole scene. They want him to fall back, of course. They want him to chill. But he says to them, like, look, I got a bounty on. I got a bounty on my head. So. And
this is just real quick, as you said, it's no accident that this scene follows directly after the Avon and Stringer Bell conversation.
No.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're right. No. He said, because he's like, the game is out there. It's either played or get played. So Omar's saying, like, look, I'm not going to wait. Omar's basically telling them, I'm not waiting for them to shoot me. Like, that's what he's saying. He says, y'all can talk all this fallback shit if you want. It sounds good, but I have a target on my head. And, of course, in his mind, they started this shit with Brandon. So he's like, you know, fuck all this fallback shit, basically. That's why I took my interpretation of that when he said the game is out there, when he gave him that line. And then at the end of the scene, there was a little comic relief saying, with McNulty asking Lester, are we still cops? And Freeman says, technically, I suppose. Technically, I guess.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts?
Yeah. So I feel like you can guess where I'm going. I need to juxtapose those two scenes together. Because the reason that scene in my mind follows is because while they're leaving breadcrumbs for us with Stringer and Avon, Omar answers Omar gives the rebuttal Avon. He just switch Avon out there. So imagine just take Omar's words and put them in Avon's mouth versus Stringer in there. That's exactly what Avon's response would have been. And we know that because we see it many, many seasons later. So the game is the game. The game is still out there. No matter, like, all these things are when you zoom out, these are plot points on a board for a season. When you zoom in from the characters' perspectives, these are actions that happen in their lives, but the game is the game. The drug game is the game, and there are rules that dictate it, period. Point blank in a story. It doesn't matter if he killed Omar's boy or not. Omar would still have a price tag on his head, and he knows that because he robs drug dealers. That's how he gets his money. They get their money by exploiting people's weaknesses in a variety of different ways, with money, with drugs, with violence, with everything like that. And that brings about a reaction from law enforcement, and law enforcement conducted in a certain type of way. And so that's what the game is the game. No matter who is in these positions, that will ultimately be the thesis statement of season 4, the game continues on. It will continue on in this form and fashion. And so you can talk all that other shit you want, Stringer, but the game is the game. Omar, like, yeah. Y'all can build your case and do your fancy wiretaps and everything like that, but the game is the game, and it's still going to move. And I'm in the middle of it, so there's nothing, I can't just chill and lay back. Just like in Avon's mind, he can't just chill and lay back because the streets are watching everything they do. The police are watching everything they do. Watching everything they do. So you either play it or you get played. That's also a little bit of an analogy to Daniels and, like, the way that he moves in and out of there. You either play or you get played.
Yes.
And so, like, yeah, I get you don't like doing politics, but, you know, tough shit. That's the way this thing works. You gotta do it if you want to move at a certain path. And then when you're in, anyways, I can go on and on if we're in the meaning of what that is. But the brilliance of that scene is that Omar is speaking not just for Omar, he's speaking for a number of the characters in the series, particularly when you juxtapose it with Avon not having a retort to Stringer, and then immediately after that scene, Omar saying that very specific phrase.
No question about it. Not a coincidence that those scenes would go back to back.
No.
You have Shardine and D'Angelo back at D'Angelo's place. D'Angelo lies to her about the girl. She's mentioned again. I mentioned earlier, this girl worked with Shardine at the club, one of Orlando's girls at the Gentleman's Club. Of course, Shardine is concerned because the girl's missing. hadn't called out, hadn't picked up her check. And D'Angelo said the last time he saw her, she was sick, quote unquote. And then he starts confiding her about the life and about what's going on, basically saying that I don't know if this is for me. You know, people are using each other, and really letting her inside of them. And we see their connection from the standpoint of, she says to him, sounds a little bit like what I do in terms of people using each other. So they have that moment. And then, of course, she says it's not going to be forever, which basically, to me, I took that as saying that this relationship is only going to be temporary when she says not forever. And so you could have took that in many ways in terms of her career, in terms of their relationship, and amongst other things. What are your thoughts on this scene?
Wallace and D'Angelo are two sides of the exact same coin. Their stories are interlocked with each other. When you think Wallace, think D'Angelo. When you think D'Angelo, think Wallace, right? So D'Angelo Wallace sees Brandon's dead body. He reacts as any normal human being would react, and he feels the ramifications of that as any normal human being would react. But because he's in this abnormal circumstances, his world doesn't give him the time to process any of that. And so he takes that and brings it inwards and becomes self-destructive. That's what's going on with Wallace. But what he's doing is he's avoiding being out there because he doesn't want any parts of it anymore because of the horror that he saw. So that's Wallace. D'Angelo, in a very similar circumstances, sees something horrible and has a natural reaction that any normal human being would happen. There's a dead girl that's laying there. We should do something. We should care about this. And because of the world that he's in, they don't give him time to process that. That's not the type of life that he's leading. And so instead of being self-destructive with drugs, he's becoming very for his world self-destructive with his mouth, and with the language that he's using, which, as we know, this exact conversation will lead to a lot of different things. And so like I can't see Wallace and D'Angelo apart, and this episode kind of seals that for me, because this is the first time we don't have to guess about how D'Angelo is feeling or just follow the tea leaves. He outright says it. He outright says what is horrible about this, and that I wish I didn't have to do this, or I don't want to do it anymore. And so, yeah. The comparison between D'Angelo and Wallace is just two are lockstep from here on out.
Yeah,
their are lockstep. Their faith is lockstep. All of it is intertwined.
No question about it. And also, D'Angelo is a horrible liar, and I'll just leave it at that. From that standpoint, and we'll get to that in later episodes.
Well, that's why I said you got to think about like what the lie is, though, right? Like it's one thing if you're lying because of a reason. It's another thing if you hate the thing that you have to lie about, right? If you're uncomfortable about the thing that you have to lie about. So if he's questioning this whole life, how good is any lie going to be about that?
Yeah, because you're absolutely right. Because so the move for D'Angelo would have been to say, look, I didn't even see her at the party. I don't know, like, I didn't even know she was there. To completely separate himself.
Right, but then that makes D'Angelo like...
But he feels guilty. He feels like, to your point, what I think you're trying to say, he feels guilty, so he tells her...
Human being.
He's a human being, yes. He feels guilty, and leading to where his character is going.
Right there.
He tells her what he tells her enough to think to what, without going all the way, to kind of somewhat clear his own conscience a little.
He's in that moment. He's being completely self-reflective. That's what's going on there. Give him 10 minutes more, maybe like the night before, like 10 minutes later, maybe he doesn't say that. Maybe he catches himself and he's like, okay, this is not something to say to anyone else. Keep that on the inside. But he's being self-reflective audibly. And if there's a mistake, that's the mistake. I don't think it's a mistake. And I don't think the writers believe it's a mistake. I think what the big thing that is being stated here is that this is not the life for me. I don't want to do these things.
Yes,
I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want to see these things. I don't want to be around people who can kill a girl and ignore that it happened.
Right.
Like that's a horrible, horrible thing. Just like what happened with Brandon was a horrible, horrible thing. But it's the world around them that doesn't allow it to be horrible. Both D'Angelo and Wallace are having normal human reactions to what happened. Everything else is the thing that's abnormal. Everybody else's reactions are abnormal. But because the world they're in, those reactions, everybody else's reactions are normalized, and Wallace and D'Angelo are made to feel like the outsiders.
Yes. Yeah. No. I completely agree with that. I just think that I do think he was trying to clear his conscience a little bit though with telling a big part of the truth and not the entire, rather than just outright not even bringing it up.
Okay.
Bunk McNulty. So Bunk and McNulty tell Cole, one of the officers, who by the way was a big part of the production of the show, Robert Colesbury, who's in season 1 and 2. They tell Cole that they will give him a closed case when they're done their case. Now, the key part of this is the fact that Cole is the investigating officer on the Stinkham killing. They can't give him that information that Omar was even close to it, because as we all know, Omar is the number one witness for the Gant case. So they don't give a fuck about the Gant case at this point. They're just worried about, well, not they, it's McNulty. McNulty doesn't give a fuck about the Gant case for the future. He's worried about this case right now in regards to the wire and in regards to the Barksdale. So he gets Bunk to lie to Cole about Omar having no involvement, bringing up no involvement, and saying that let us work our case right now. So, and then we'll give you the clearance later on, which is complete bullshit, because they're not going to, they won't give them the clearance. Not going to give them the clearance. They're not able to give them the clearance later on. I'm not telling you anything. I'm not saying this is what they said in the scene, and they know it's bullshit. That's why they felt, guilty and go to the bar later on. What are your thoughts on this scene?
I can't talk about this scene until you get to the end.
Okay.
They're tied. So keep going. Yep. We'll talk about it.
Yes, no, this is okay.
Yep.
So we're at the bar now with McNulty, and so you have McNulty and Bunk at the bar. McNulty lies to Bunk's wife. So they were talking. They're talking about the case, of course, and Bunk basically says, "I will carry it. I'll carry the case." McNulty's, feeling somewhat, I guess, guilty for him. He offers to pay, for his drinks or whatever. I don't think he's feeling guilty. He just, hey, it's on me. These rounds are on me tonight. Bunk says he'll carry the lie. He'll carry it. He'll carry it. Bunk has already lied. He took Cole into, the office and lied to him and what have you. So he carried out with what McNulty wanted to do. So then McNulty, Bunk spots a woman at the bar that he wants to hook up with. He tells McNulty to call his wife, tell her that he caught one, so he can hook up with this chick with this lady at the bar. In terms of what happened later on, we assume that McNulty made that call. Then he says tells me when McNulty has a nerve to even push back, he says, like, motherfucker, I lied for you. You can't do me this little favor. So go ahead.
Gotta keep going. It all like these three scenes are linked to each other.
Well, the next scene is the Freeman. You want to talk about the Freeman Kima?
Oh,
yeah,
I was thinking of the very end. Yeah, let's do the Keeman because I can talk about that individually.
We'll do Kima.
Yeah.
Right, so Freeman and Kima are discussing police instincts. Now,
Right.
Freeman has a list of girls that from Orlando's club that he thinks he can turn. Even before they get to that part, Kima confides into Freeman that she might have fucked up in regards to her discussion, her conversation with Omar in regard a couple episodes back when they were talking about talking with Omar about the Gant case. He says that she says that she knows, Omar said that he would be the eyewitness, but she knows that Omar's lying. That's the overall thing. That's the big point of it. Big point to that point. She knows that Omar was lying about being the eyeball witness, but Freeman tells her you fucked up a little bit, but the gun did come up with in terms of Bird, and he's locked up. He tells her, you still need to trust your instincts. Now, they get to the girls. It's about 4 girls. One of them, of course, is Chardine. He asked Kima, which one of these girls would you turn? She points out Chardine. He says, why? He says, I like her face. Says something in the eye. So he basically is schooling her on, giving her, the episode's called Lessons. He basically giving her a lesson on police instincts and also the art of interrogation. He says interrogation is much art as is an art as much as it is anything. So that again, and of course this will lead to things that are going to happen in regards to Charlene, as she points out that Charlene is the one that she would try to flip. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, there's a lot going on in this scene. And part of me is like, am I reading too much into one part? So the nuts and bolts, what you said and what it means, that is absolutely correct. It's showing Freeman's being a mentor to Kima.
Right.
And there's a big part of it. It's the very beginning of that scene where he's talking to her about what interrogation is like is more of an instinctual thing first, and then he pulls out the pictures for her, and then that's like a kind of like the master saying to the apprentice, now show me how you would use this skill. Or give me an idea of what you would think. And so then they go on and that everything like that. That also sets up the importance of what Chardine's going to play in the rest of this season. So all those pieces are there and are pretty self-explanatory as you did. But I caught something this time. And this is what I mean by I can't tell if I'm reading too much into it because I know the ultimate fate of characters in season 5. This time I'm looking at it and Kima is consistent with her character. And the character, as she's shown up from now to the very end of the series, she'll be consistent there. This is an example of her clearing her conscience and just saying the thing like, oh man, I think I tipped our hand in that. What should I do, mentor, about this? Now, Freeman, if we think about how he ends up, then he gives a very consistent answer. But it's not the best mentor answer possible because it's not by the book. What he tells her is the ends justify the means, essentially. We got the gun and everything. Like, nah, that was wrong. You didn't handle it right. The ends justify the means. Now let's practice this skill on reading people's eyes. So when I was looking at this, I'm like, it will be consistent with what I know happens to Lester Freeman, but I don't know if it's a consistent character description of Lester throughout the series. So I don't know if they're leaving breadcrumbs or if they're putting the seeds in there for Lester's ultimate demise in this scene, or if I'm reading too much into it because I know what happens to Lester at the very end of the show. What I did notice more this time was Lester's reaction to Kima's question. Kima was coming from a very honest place and a very like, I'm not sure if I did this right. What should I do? And Lester did not give the prototypical "this is by the book," which we know Lester doesn't necessarily operate by. But everything that you said in terms of setting up the structure of what is to come, this scene accomplishes.
Damn! Wow. So, because I just fast forward to season 5.
Yeah.
No, I don't think that I don't think that you're looking too far ahead. I don't think that that's reaching. I think that this show oftentimes foreshadows not only from episode to episode, it can foreshadow season to season. It can foreshadow this show. Foreshadowing is just a major part of what this show is going to do. So, what I just thought about as you were speaking was Freeman is like, you know, I don't do everything by the book because we achieved what we set out to do. That's what should have spoke to you in this. That I'm not this. I have this intent. I have this Jedi mindset, forward thinking. This, attention to detail. We know this from Freeman. We know Freeman is the best detective on this show. Okay, but that to me, that scene showed that he would, if necessary, be a candidate to cut some corners. So I actually don't think that's a reach at all, considering what ends up happening with Freeman and Keegan. Yes, absolutely. No, absolutely not. I would not have thought about that until you just said it. I did not see that part of it. Didn't even think to that part of it because I was kind of focused in on Charlene.
Yep, and they set all of that. Like I said, they set up the seat. They set all of that is set up. That is absolutely there. But I really focused in on that this time.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I could definitely see that being a setup for seasons, moving way forward.
Yep.
So yes, all right, we get to the final scene. You have Bunk and McNulty. So the lady calls McNulty late and early in the morning, what have you. He goes to her house and finds out that of course Bunk and Lady have had sex. He's setting off. She claims that he's setting off the fire alarm. He goes into the room, the bathroom, and Bunk is burning clothes. Bunk has burnt his clothes. He's in a bathrobe with a tie on and his boxers, smoking a cigar. He's burnt all of his clothes, his pants, his suit jacket, a bunch of stuff. And they're going back and forth with McNulty talking about this is I need to burn all this evidence, the DNA and fibers and all this shit. Bunk of course is drunk out of his mind as well. And he takes Bunk home back to McNulty's house, and he lays in one of the kids' bunk beds, and Bunk tells him, "You're no good for people," and that's how the episode. That's how the episode ends.
Yep. McNulty looks at him and closes the door.
Yeah, looks at him and closes the door.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm getting back to my friendship deep dive last week.
There you go. Yep. Absolutely. No, I was going to give you all the credit in the world, and I remembered this, so that's why I didn't speak so much on it last week. Like I remembered this scene coming up, and I was like, he's right on it, and then he'll have the evidence next week to really knock it out the park. So couple things come to my mind. Like that's why I said like the three. Like I can't break down any of these three parts. All right, so now we got to go back to the initial McNulty coming in and saying, I've made my thoughts and ideas on McNulty very clear, and I think they're consistent with his character over his series, and I think it's very consistent with what the writers want us to know about McNulty. McNulty is a manipulative son of a bitch, and it's never, ever, ever more clear in this season than now when he goes to Bunk. Bunk, although very morally ambiguous in a lot of different places, in terms of the law, he's very black and white. This is right, this is wrong. McNulty's the one who schemes and plans, goes behind people's backs and lies and does all this stuff. That's not Bunk at all. That is not him in how he handles his professional life. And so this is a huge ask of him. And McNulty makes the ask, and leverages his mentorship, his friendship with Bunk to do it. Bunk's a grown man. He does what is asked of him. So I'm not taking responsibility off of him. And so then we get to the next scene of them at the bar. Now, there's a variety of reasons why people go out and drink. One of the reasons is when they feel really horrible about something and they want to drown it. And so McNulty saying, all right, I'm gone. This is the money I was going to spend on you, already lets you know that this wasn't like a partner, like I'm going out to buy you drinks for doing me a favor and we're going to like cheers each other. Hey, we got one over on Bob Cole and we're all going to laugh. He knows how bad this is stinging Bunk, and Bunk is letting him know. And McNulty's uncomfortable with it. If he's going to let Bunk handle it, he's going to let Bunk handle it. He's going to let him carry it. This is not something he could be a part of because Bunk would probably not enjoy McNulty being there and carrying on, and that might bring up some friction. That being said, that's how we know. McNulty's like, here's the money I would have spent. I'm out of here. People cheat and go out and have sex with strangers for a variety of reasons. One of the reasons is because they feel really guilty and horrible about something. And so in that scene, in that setup, that's what you see with Bunk. And then at the very end with Bunk burning the clothes and everything like that entire scene is played for laughs, but there's a common theme in The Wire. Whenever a scene is played for laughs, it's a
deeper meaning,
fucking vital importance.
Yes.
Like it is like laugh at it and then analyze it.
Yes.
Because it's very meaningful. And so all that is played for laughs, but it's not funny at all. This is a man who's internally in pain and crisis because he did something that is against the nature of his character.
His code.
Bunk would never, ever, ever shit on another policeman.
No.
He would never do that under any normal circumstances. And that is what, in that saying, what he means to McNulty. McNulty, you're no good for people. You're making me do something I would never, ever do under any normal circumstance, which then jumps back to your point from last week of how horrible they are for each other because Bunk is like a mentor to McNulty and a good friend to McNulty. He does it. He does it just sheerly based off of their relationship, but in direct contradiction to his own personal codes and values, which sets off a chain of self-destructive behaviors in Bunk to try to overcome this one favor that McNulty asked him. Bunk also, what's also laced in that statement of you're no good for people is that you knew this about me.
Yes.
You knew how hard I was going to take this, and yet you asked me anyway. You did not give a shit. Your case means everything to you, not how I would handle this. So, very deep, very meaningful, plays exactly into what you were talking about last week.
And similar to our last scene with Kima and Freeman in terms of foreshadowing, this foreshadows season 5 as well in terms of Bunk.
Bunk will never ever do anything like this for McNulty again.
Bam. Yep. There's a direct correlation between this and what happens in season 5.
Yep.
So Bunk does this for him. He carries it, and basically, and Bunk just lets him know, hey man, you're just no good for people. I mean, you think about how think about that statement. You're no good for people.
Yep.
You know. One last thing in regards to seeing Omar also, I forgot to mention, Omar was casing the Orlando's Gentlemen's Club as well. So that's something to file away as well. So he's like he told him before.
He's on the hunt.
He's on the hunt. He's on the hunt. He's casing. They're tracking him. And he's tracking them. So he's casing them. They show him smoking cigarettes behind, and he watches some people come out the Gentlemen's Club. So that don't forget about that scene from that standpoint. MVP.
Omar,
yeah. Yeah, I think that, yeah.
he seals his legend status in this.
For the epigraph,
Yep.
his casing, his skills, his just being ahead of his playing chess, and just just how he carries himself, and just again the thing about the Omar character that a lot of people don't know. If you're a wirehead like us two, you of course know this. Over the 5 seasons, he was not in a lot of scenes. He was not in a lot of scenes when you really look at it. When he's in a scene, he makes it count. His scenes count probably double or triple some of the other actors as far as the ramifications of it, and also what he says. Like,
for example, you could juxtapose it to Herc, right? Herc's in a ton of scenes throughout the series.
Yes.
But every time Herc is on screen, it's not going to be a meaningful moment.
No.
Whenever Omar's on scene, it's a meaningful moment. It just is.
Absolutely, no question about it. Like when he makes that statement, the game is out here, either played or get played. We could tie that into so many things, not only in the course of this episode, but throughout the course of the series. Like that is a real that statement could be an epigraph. We were talking about other epigraphs. That easily could be an epigraph.
And honestly, this is the season, since they're kind of like setting that up for Omar. Like this is actually the season where I would say he was the least impactful, but of course his least impactful was like amazingly impactful. But especially, I mean, like it just after this, like I said, this was legend. This is the cement for legendary. Every single everything he does is everything. It means everything. It just there's no coming back at this point in time. Like Omar's a monster. He's just a monster.
Yeah, a couple other things. Moving forward from episodes 9 to 13, this thing is going to be, the pace is going to pick up. Like it's go at this point. At this point, it's go time. Because now what you're going to start to see as we continue to do these episodes is you're going to start to see payoffs. You're going to start to see payoffs to things that happened in previous episodes and making those type of connections. Not going to give all the payoffs because we still have 4 seasons left, but you're going to start, things are going to move quicker, and then you're going to have, the Wire's always going to have setups.
They're going to pay off everything they set up for this season.
Yes.
These are the payoffs for this season. They will pay off everything that they set up for this season while simultaneously setting up the big structures for the next coming seasons.
Yes, absolutely. And a fact that I did not know about this episode, the lady that slept with Bunk, she plays Randy's mom in season 4. Did not know that.
Wow, I didn't know that either.
I did not know that.
Nice.
Did not know that. Yes.
Factoid.
That was I was like, whoa. And then I looked at it, I was like, yeah, that was her. That was her. Yeah, when I read it.
Didn't know that.
Like, yeah. I'm saying they did that at times, that they would do that with the show. Well, you would see characters in early seasons who
lots of shows do that. That's a great fact.
Yeah. So
didn't know that. I just didn't. I never paid attention.
moving forward again, those episodes 9 through 13, the last 5 episodes will be paying off without question. Without question, and you'll get introduced to some new characters, some new key characters, and we'll continue on. I think we covered everything.
All right. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Absolutely, and enjoy the season finale of the Jordan documentary.
Yes, sir. We'll talk about it later.
We will have plenty. We'll have plenty to say on that. All right, Rob Sapp, take us. Be easy, man.
Have a good one.
That's going to wrap up this edition of the Real Deal Podcast, the Wire Remix. I hope you enjoyed the episode. As always, you can check out this episode on iTunes, Stitcher, and various other podcast platforms. I will have this up as soon as possible for my viewing audience. I'm out.